Live from deep in an underground bunker in East Tennessee, this is America's premier mortgage field services expert, Paul Williams.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you back to another edition of Foreclosurepedia podcast. Foreclosurepedia podcast presentation of the Foreclosurepedia Radio Network, which premieres each weekend. The date is the 17th of September, 2017. The time is 0800 hours Eastern Daylight Time. And I tell you, folks, it's been a very interesting past couple of weeks. You know, the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development last year embarked upon a new frontier, if you will, in contracting, and this is specific to their marketing management field service manager contract. And in essence, it was the how low can you go? And in some ways, this was a good thing. Had HUD allowed this to be free, open, and fair competition. But you see, HUD did not do that. And under the command and control of Secretary Dr. Ben Carson, the fact of the matter is that HUD is in shambles. Now, whether or not the M&M portion of HUD is both in shambles and corrupt, we're going to get into that here in just a moment. What we do know for a fact is that how HUD rolled these contracts, the bidding process, was known as LPTA, lowest price technically acceptable. And, you know, a lot of things, not just the awards in and of themselves, but the change in management that has happened under the FSM in the past 2 months, this has really gotten many people to ask a lot of questions, myself included. Craig Carnes used to run the M&M program down there in Atlanta, and he was recently replaced by a woman by the name of Kimberlee Satterfield. Now, we're developing intelligence on this woman right now as I speak with you, and you know, I haven't done that in the past. I've generally attempted those people whom I communicate with and provide good information for the American public. I try not to dig through their laundry. But in the case of Miss Satterfield, it has become necessary. You know, Kimberlee Satterfield now, and incidentally, so Craig Carnes was promoted. Craig Carnes is, for want of better words, her immediate supervisor. In fact, he's stated as much in direct emails between himself and Foreclosurepedia. But, you know, right now, you know, Kimberlee Satterfield is the acting director down there, and she recently oversaw $616,787 in payments to PK Management. That's right, PK Management. What were those payments for? You know, I'm glad you asked, because Satterfield had to assist her friends, her patrons, over at Innotion Enterprises in maintaining their recent HUD Management and Marketing Field Service Manager 310 contract awards in Region 6A. Now, 6A is Tennessee, Mississippi, and Alabama, and currently PK Management held those awards, but they're needing to be held over for yet another month so that Innotion allegedly can get their act together. It's ironic because they already have an office, already have staff. They've done this before. They've done it for the past 6 years. Hell, they ran the whole company for BLM companies. In fact, Craig Carnes himself, as I'm told, gave them an exemption. Gave BLM an exemption to use Innotion Enterprises personnel. Now, you know, those guys over there, that's the Amos and Al show. Yeah. You know, Big Cuban there. Al Espinoza. Yeah. Amos Alexander, the other half of the Cuban. Make no mistake about that. Now, you know, it's important to pay attention to all this. You know, Satterfield has done everything in her power to continue allowing Innotion Enterprises to operate their illegal and life-threatening electrical backfeeding. In fact, it was Foreclosurepedia whom liaised with the the state of South Carolina and the state of New Jersey. We brought this to Craig Carnes, showed electrical backfeeding was illegal. And in fact, they put the language into, and in direct response to the Q&A for the 310 offering, no more electrical backfeeding. It's illegal. Satterfield continues to allow it to happen, though. In fact, Satterfield has done absolutely nothing to prevent this. And I'm going to tell you, Miss Satterfield, if you or your lawyers are listening to me, fuck both of you. But on the real, if somebody dies, the blood's on your fucking hands. You know, Satterfield just recently took herself a vacation. It's ironic because that vacation coincided when this request for $516,000 plus went out. I don't know. Does anybody in the Foreclosurepedia Nation find that to be ironic? I sure the fuck don't. You know, let me just attempt to put it in perspective in a way that all of you have become accustomed to. You know what Kimberlee Satterfield has attempted to do is preventing the American public from understanding the simple and salient fact that Innotion Enterprises is in over their head. And how do I come to this conclusion? First, let's address the $616,000. You know, Region 6A covers 3 states, and back when I received what was called the REO Inventory and Activity Trend Report, and it was broken down by HOC and state, I received that directly from Craig Carnes on the 4th of September, 2016. Now, for those 3 states, there were roughly, 1,800 properties, give or take a few, that were in the inventory at that time. During a 1-month period, we had about 320 properties come in, so we'll call those newly acquired. So, when we subtract the two, all right, so we have 1,800. We're going to subtract 320 for that. We have 1,480 properties which are in some type of routine capacity. All right? We have 320 properties requiring an initial HPIR to be done. Pretty simple. This is simple math. When you look at the mortgage field services industry, average pricing for a routine grass cut, it's about $35. I mean, that's what labor gets paid in the field. Let's not bullshit around. Don't tell me what MCS has on their numbers. Go away with that. The industry average for an initial HPIR today, about $375. So if we have 1,480 inventoried properties times $35 per routine grass cut equals $51,800. You know, you take 320 newly acquired properties, multiply that by $375 per initial HPIR. It's about it's $120,000. My math, I'm pretty sure, is right on there. Total payments, it's $171,800. So I'm trying to figure out how in the fuck we get an authorization for over $500,000 to PK management for only 1 month. See, we're not even talking anymore about the simple and salient fact Innotion doesn't need it. We're not even talking about the fact that Innotion Enterprises in Illinois was under size protest. They're under an SBA 355 formal complaint for lying about their size. We're not even talking about that. You don't want the numbers to sink in, though, for just a moment. That means that Satterfield was willing to overpay $444,987 to keep her patrons at Innotion Enterprises in power. You know, I want to be very candid here. You know, Satterfield has had her hands in a hell of a lot of jars lately. A lot of jars full of money, wherein she is authorizing and overseeing monies moving in and out. She's also authorizing and overseeing the illegal activities in Innotion Enterprises for electrical backfeeding and Purdy Enterprise for their continued use of the illegal anti-whistleblower provisions in their subcontractors agreement. Now that's Mitch Davidson All you boys and girls out there probably remember him as the cuddly little brawny guy. Brawny towels. Well, here's the reality. He's out there fucking labor. Him and Thomas Purdy, this piss-poor excuse, pretending, charading to run around as a disabled veteran, bullshit. But both of them are fucking minority females, and they're fucking labor, and it's fucking bullshit. You know, we're running an article later on tonight. It's going to have the official HUD Form 24012 documents all these monies moving in and out. No questions being asked. Everyone really needs to sit down and ask themselves this question. And a lot of you that listen to me out there, you're not even in the industry anymore, so you don't have anything to lose. Why not call HUD? Why not call the Office of the Inspector General? You're U.S. taxpayers. Why not say there is something that is wrong? Why not do that? I mean, I don't know. I do it. I do it every single day when I get behind this microphone here on the Foreclosurepedia radio network, when I talk to you and others in the Foreclosurepedia nation. Why not stand as one? We could stop this. You know that? We really, really could. But you know, right out of the gate, Satterfield and her staff have been doing everything they could to line pockets. When we look at over $500,000 for 1 month's worth of work, it's bullshit. You know, even more importantly, and to the point though, is that Satterfield has a vested interest in keeping the American public in the dark. You know, how do I come to say this? Well, Craig Carnes originally released that REO inventory report I spoke about earlier. You know, he released it and directed it to me. He noted in his emails that, it was allowed to be released, and it didn't require a Freedom of Information Act request. You know, when we requested an updated report of the same from Satterfield, who is now in charge of the entirety of the HUD M&M program, she refused to do such. And, you know, normally it's simply an inconvenience. I mean, you know, but here's the reality. $500,000 goes a long ways in convincing government employees to turn blind eyes. Who exactly is running HUD? You know, I mean, that's a question a lot of people are asking me today. You know, now at every step of this investigation I've conducted, Satterfield has attempted to refuse to answer questions. In fact, Satterfield, whom replaced Craig Carnes, and bearing in mind as the acting director of the Southern Command, you know, she'd appear to have no oversight whatsoever. And even though Carnes states he's Satterfield's immediate supervisor, the reality is Carnes appears to have no interest in oversight whatsoever of Satterfield. You know, HUD Secretary Carson, he's unfortunately proving many of the Beltway pundits correct in that he is incapable of running a large government agency. You know, several months ago, we had forced, myself, Richard Law over at Sophie, we had forced Carson to attempt to address the security issues that are out there with the locks. And, you know, he half-heartedly did that. You know, we brought forward the information about how National Association of Mortgage Field Services members were publicly distributing the HUD master key codes to all of the HUD-owned foreclosed properties. And to be quite blunt, to all foreclosed properties in the United States. And, you know, to this day, that information is still being published by NAMPS members, and to this day, they're still selling the HUD master key codes for $1 a piece. You know, so let me put it in a way so that everybody can understand it. Let me put it bluntly. You know, if you're down on your luck and you want to illegally equip your home, your friend's home, or hell, thousands of homes with appliances, all you'd have to do is buy a set of keys from a NAMPS member like MFS Supply and steal the appliances. It's no bullshit. You need to support your crack or heroin habit? Hell, those keys you can buy from a NAMPS member. And the NAMPS member, you can read all the published key codes out there. HUD has done nothing about this. Craig Carnes has done nothing about this. Kimberlee Satterfield is doing nothing about this. Secretary Ben Carson is doing nothing about this. So this doesn't lay at my feet. But those keys are going to open the very same doors, and look, it's a veritable buffet of copper wiring, piping, HVAC systems, all for the taking. Illegal, but all for the taking thanks to NAMPS members and HUD. And let's not bullshit around. The reality is, in the real world, I'm surprised that, and we know what's going on now anyway, I'm surprised it hadn't rapidly accelerated. You know, it's naive for Secretary Carson to believe that this is not going to happen, that it hasn't happened. It's been borderline criminal for Carnes and his team to have allowed this to go unchecked for nearly 2 decades. It is, in my opinion, criminal that Satterfield continues to refuse to do anything about it. But hey, you curious about what price was paid for this? Hell, Carnes just got back from week-long absence, taken on the heels of, his subordinate Kimberlee Satterfield's vacation. And you gotta wonder, you really gotta wonder, who paid for those vacations? We got $500,000 in play here, ladies and gentlemen. Almost gives one a sense, if you will. I want you to picture this. Close your eyes and picture this. It's like a meeting with the X-Files cigarette man in a greasy diner in a booth in the corner, or perhaps the Thin Thread program over at NSA. Low number, non-sequential bills in a brown lunch bag fished out of a trash can with 2 white chalk lines at the base. Yeah. The reality is that HUD has become even more corrupt than it was before the most recent FSM 310 awards. And to that point, HUD OIG and inspectors, they're running across country right now. Specifically, they're drilling down on Illinois, bearing in mind that that's where Innotion Enterprises is running the show. Putting out fires which Satterfield and Carnes have allowed to ignite. In fact, here's how it was described by one of our members of the Foreclosurepedia Nation, specifically how horrific the Innotion Enterprises awards have become. Quote, Troy Spring, their QC manager, that'd be Innotion's QC manager, told us that electrical backfeeding was mandatory at the initial training session. What you have to understand is that this company has become a complete shit show. They were awarded on June 5th. Al Espinoza did nothing for a month and a half. His answer was to hire Troy Spring from BLM at the last minute to set everything up. They had one meeting with Troy running everything. They have since hired Eric Hall, who was a QC field service manager under PK. He is completely incompetent as well and was let go by PK. Finally, when things started going extremely bad, they inherited 700 code violations and work order notices from PK, and they were already getting NRTSs. Now, those are not ready to shows on everything. They hired this guy, Daryl William, to be their field QC inspector. This guy was fired by Janice Cooper at Cooper City West for gaming the system. So Al has basically onboarded the leftovers. In addition, they have hired property managers for $10 an hour. Some of them are working out of their houses on their own computers. They call from their own personal cell phones. They have never had any additional training. I don't know if you've noticed, but HUD awarded PK an extension of services in 6A in Notion's other zone. The big story is not their requirement of backfeeding. It is the fact that they are failing, and HUD is not happy with their performance as April Cooper at Alpine puts on the pressure. Every property that has had initial services performed on is being flagged by Alpine as not ready to show. And look, we were able to confirm with sources at First Preston that the Innotion Enterprises properties were abysmal. And this begs the question, is Kimberlee Satterfield invoking the mandatory $50 per occurrence per day fine? Yeah, because that's built into the contract. If she is not and employing it against others, or if she's just not employing it at all, it could be criminal under the right settings. And it's a good question. What we do know is that Satterfield is refusing to allow anyone to know anything, which continues to fuel my and other suspicions that Satterfield is being paid off in one way or another. Perhaps her promotion was the originating bribe. Was it the vacation she just took? Was it perhaps subsidized? Or perhaps a refinancing on the mortgage on her home in the Atlanta area? Or perhaps some aid in kind to close friends and colleagues in Chicago? Hey. It also leaves open for question whether or not Craig Carnes will ultimately step in. But you know what we do know, ladies and gentlemen? When it comes to HUD, it is anyone's guess. Yes, the opening monologue. I appreciate everybody for listening. We're going to be right back here in a moment. You're going to love our guest tonight. Incredible individual. Still working within the Beltway. Works within HUD on a lot of projects there. And we're going to be right back in a moment after a word from our sponsors. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. As usual, you may reach me on Google Plus at D. Paul Williams, LinkedIn, Paul Williams, and the LinkedIn group Property Preservation Consortium, Twitter, Foreclosurepedia. We stream all our podcasts on iTunes, Foreclosurepedia. We have our screencasts over on YouTube, the Foreclosurepedia channel, and always at foreclosurepedia.org. We'd like to give a special shout out to Amazon.com, whom provides our S3 podcast and video storage, and Cloudflare for hosting Foreclosurepedia in 24 different geo-positioned servers, pro bono as well. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to give me a shout out, COO at foreclosurepedia.org.